one last thing. There are, in any third-party candidacy, you will always hear a hue and cry arise from the party faithful that a third-party candidacy vote is somehow deleterious. In other words, oh my God, if you vote for Jesse, well, that just means that John Racy's more likely to win. You want to address that for a sec?
Well, sure. I mean, first of all, what is their fear based on? And the crux of the matter is voting out of fear. Never should you vote out of fear. You should vote out of your aspirations, your dreams, your wants, your values, the needs that you have for yourself and your country and for your family and your community. That is what voting is for, not for wasting it out of fear to hold your nose and vote for someone who doesn't represent any of the values of yourself or your party, or things that you don't believe in life. This is what has led us down the path that we find ourselves on, at that point where we find ourselves today in this entire nation, and certainly in the state of West Virginia. So, first of all, there are these polls, these Rasmussen polls, the PPG polls, etc. I have these polls. I have the scripts from these polls, and you can see them. And those polls are not scientific. The press will tell you that they're scientific. The press will even tell you that I have 2% of the vote. I've heard it repeated by public broadcasting. I've heard it repeated in the Daily Mail. I've heard it repeated in various places around the state. But the fact of the matter is that it's not scientific because not one of these polls has my name even listed or my party even listed. They ask no questions about me or my position or my beliefs, or even put me into the questions with the Democrat and Republican in a state that has 3 parties on the ballot for the last 10 years. So it's not scientific by definition. Now, secondly, they call you up at home. They call those data points. The theory is that they're collecting information, but what they actually do, these pollsters, they're planting seeds of information into the communities. They're not collecting information from the communities. So when you hear 10 questions and they only are about 2 out of 3 or 4 candidates, there's another level that lacks science. You may want to, I'm not advocating and saying that the Daily Mail's online poll that had me 2 points behind Racy and 10 points ahead of Manchin, I'm not saying that's a scientific poll either.
But at least it acknowledges your existence.
Exactly, and I'm not saying that the poll that was published in the Gazette this morning that states that, that asked the question, would you, just simply, would you vote for a third-party candidate? And
44% of the people responding said yes.
Exactly. And about 10 days ago, there was a Gallup poll that said that the American people believe that the only way we can right the ills of this country is with a third party and with a third-party candidate being elected. Thomas Friedman just wrote an article called Third Party Rising. This happens. If you look at our American history, this happens every time we reach this kind of critical mass. And there is a mandate among the people for change. And that's what you saw reflected in the Tea Party, but it unfortunately was co-opted by Faux News Network and the neocons. And so it's mostly been about electing Republicans. But the angst of those people and those parties is genuine. It's real. They know something's wrong. They just don't know what it is. And so they listen to someone who proffers, who has the ability in the press to proffer an answer. But those people who are voting out of fear are doing it predicated on misinformation, on completely unscientific misinformation. And it's not, this misinformation is intentional because it is what is classically known as push polling.
Yes.
So then when you factor in what I said before, and we discussed, that these guys who won these landslide victories in the special election won them on 10% of the electorate. Let's say that stood, and I polled 10%, just as was reflected in today's poll published in the Gazette this morning. I win in a landslide.
You're going to be the senator.
Exactly. And let me tell you something. If you really want somebody in Washington to stand up for West Virginia, if you really want somebody in Washington that stands up for the Constitution, if you really want somebody who is not going to be swayed by special interests, who's not going to back down for your best interest, then send a Mountain Party candidate to Washington and let the nation have to deal with that, because that's the shot that West Virginia can fire that could be heard around the world.
Well, Jesse, this program goes around the world.
Well, it can be a real mandate for change, and I hope that this conversation inspires that and inspires people to vote for their beliefs and not their fears, because it can happen, it does happen, and with your help and with the help of the voters in the state of West Virginia, it will happen.